started, if you can, what's your name and what's your title and organization?
So my name is Steve Williams, and I'm the director of POWER, which stands for People Organized to Win Employment Rights.
What was promised by the mayor's office in return for withdrawing the living wage ballot initiative?
As a result of the organizing that was done by the Living Wage Coalition, the mayor's office and the Department of Human Services promised to create 850 community jobs initiative jobs for welfare recipients. Currently, the city of San Francisco operates a community jobs initiative, which is essentially a short-term work program for individuals who are receiving CalWorks benefits, mostly moms with kids. But there are a very small number of slots, only about 80 slots that are currently filled. We wanted to see those slots expanded to 850, 600 of which would come from the CalWorks program and 250 which would come from the General Assistance and PAYS program. The city agreed to do that and agreed that they would raise the wage from $6.26 an hour up to $8 an hour, plus health benefits for everybody who isn't currently receiving health coverage.
What is the greatest barrier in the welfare to work transition?
The biggest barrier that workfare workers and welfare recipients face is that they're not allowed, by the virtue of the job descriptions, to meet the minimum qualifications to ultimately move on to permanent living wage positions within the civil service bureaucracy. A workfare worker who sweeps the streets in exchange for their welfare benefits in San Francisco only does 90% of all of the tasks that are listed in the minimum qualifications. So because that individual, that workfare worker, regardless of how long he or she has worked, because that person doesn't do 100% of the tasks listed in the minimum qualifications, they're never given the opportunity to apply for a permanent job with the city as a street sweeper. And so one of the things that we've done with the Community Jobs Initiative in the Living Wage Agreement was to make the city agree that they were going to redraft the job descriptions so that workers participating in the Community Jobs Initiative would meet all of the qualifications for permanent civil service jobs.
What do CalWorks recipients get currently?
CalWorks recipients right now only receive $6.26 an hour in participation with the Community Jobs Initiative. And after taxes are taken out, it actually goes down to minimum wage. So we've got moms with kids who are forced to pay rent, clothes, transportation in the most expensive city in the country, working off of minimum wage while they're providing valuable services to the city and county of San Francisco and to private businesses throughout the city.
What kind of services are they providing?
So right now, CalWorks recipients are mostly doing janitorial and administrative work in nonprofits throughout San Francisco. Although there's been some discussion about moving CalWorks recipients into public sector work or into work in the private sector. Right now, through agreements with the public sector unions and through advocacy on behalf of workfare workers, we've actually been able to stop that push.
What would it cost the city to supplement the CalWorks grant to the maximum allowable by law?
Well, right now, the city funds the Community Jobs Initiative largely through funding coming through the state and federal government. And that is actually how the $6.26 wage level is funded. What we're proposing is that the hourly wage rate for CalWorks recipients go up to $8 an hour. For all of the 600 slots, that would cost the city only $1.7 million to fund the difference between the $6.26 an hour wage right now up to $8 an hour.
And and how could GA workers and PACE workers be included in the Community Jobs Initiative?
Well, currently, there's no community jobs initiative program for recipients of general assistance and pays. The city, as a result of the agreement coming out of the living wage negotiations, agreed that they would create 250 slots for general assistance and pays recipients in a community jobs initiative program. The wage level in that program, again, would be $8 an hour, the same as in the CalWorks program. The cost to the city for that would only be $2.17 million to fund the 250 positions, giving people an opportunity to gain work experience and hopefully get jobs either in the public or private sector.
And then I'm going to just backtrack a little bit on, maybe you can give a little history on how did Power discover, investigate why GA workers were not getting city jobs. Some of that will be repetitive, but what did Power discover in investigating why GA workers were not getting city jobs?
Well, Power began organizing workfare workers, largely folks who were receiving general assistance benefits, in 1997. And during that time, while we were going out and talking to folks who were sweeping the streets, cleaning muni buses, doing laundry at San Francisco General Hospital, performing administrative tasks at the Department of Human Services, what we heard time and time again was that workfare workers wanted the opportunity to be able to apply and be eligible for permanent civil service positions doing the exact same work that they were required to do as workfare workers. Time and time again, we would hear workfare workers say that they had actually gone through the bureaucratic process of trying to submit their names, receive an application to apply for a position. And time again, those same workfare workers would tell us that they were routinely turned away, that they were told that because they were a workfare worker, they weren't eligible to apply. It didn't seem to make a lot of sense to us, and so we began doing some investigation, talking more in depth with workfare workers. And we actually met one workfare worker who had swept the streets of San Francisco for 7 years. That same person, after having swept the streets of San Francisco for 7 years, heard about a job opening that was going to be available as a city-employed street sweeper. That individual went down to the civil service office, submitted his name for consideration, but was told that after his first interview that he was not eligible to get a job as a city-employed street sweeper because he didn't have the requisite experience even after 7 years of sweeping the streets for the city and county of San Francisco. So with that information, we actually wound up doing some direct actions targeting the Civil Service Commission, demanding that they make workfare workers eligible to apply for the permanent jobs that they're doing as workfare workers. The information that we received coming out of those actions from the Civil Service Department was that because the way that people apply for civil service positions is that they have to meet what are listed as minimum qualifications, a listing of a number of tasks and experience that people have to have in order to be eligible even to apply for those positions. What the Department of Human Resources informed us was that because workfare workers' job descriptions didn't match up entirely with the minimum qualifications for the permanent positions, even if a workfare worker were to sweep the streets or to clean muni buses or to do laundry at San Francisco General Hospital for 7 days, 7 months, or 7 years, they were still not going to have 1 minute of experience that was valid in terms of their trying to get a job that was going to pay them a decent wage to move them out of poverty. And so with that information, we developed our initiative to try to move workfare workers from being ineligible to apply for permanent city positions to then being eligible to apply for those positions.
What can DHS do to help workfare workers move into city jobs?
Well, first, the Department of Human Services has to be willing to look at all of the job descriptions that workfare workers are assigned and that they've created through the Community Jobs Initiative and make sure that the tasks that are listed in those job descriptions match directly up with the minimum qualifications as they're listed for the corresponding permanent civil service positions. That is the only way that workfare workers are going to have the opportunity to move out of poverty from workfare into the permanent civil service positions that they're doing the work of already. Additionally, for the Community Jobs Initiative, the Department of Human Services will need to make sure that people who are receiving general assistance and PAYS benefits continue to be eligible for those benefits as long as they're continuing to participate in the Community Jobs Initiative. Currently, the regulations of the CAP program, the County Adult Assistance Program, would indicate that if anybody were participating in the CAP program, that they would become ineligible for assistance and therefore no longer be able to participate in the Community Jobs Initiative program. Similar to what they did in the CalWORKS program, we want the Department of Human Services to make the necessary regulatory changes so that CAP, general assistance, and PAYS recipients will be eligible to participate in the Community Jobs Initiative in the same way that CalWORKS workers are participating.
How can GA and PACE workers be included in the living wage law in the minimum compensation ordinance? And how is that different from the Community Jobs Initiative?
Well, it's crucial that general assistance, PAYS, and CalWORKS recipients be included in the living wage law, because in living wage ordinances that have passed across the country, many businesses have used welfare recipients and workfare workers to try to circumvent the living wage ordinance. Instead of paying their traditional employees a living wage, what businesses have done is brought in workfare workers to perform the exact same work, but because they're not classified as employees, the businesses are able not to pay a living wage to the people who are performing the exact same task. So it's clearly imperative that the Board of Supervisors and the City and County of San Francisco include general assistance, PAYS, and CalWORKS recipients as a protected grouping of low and no wage workers covered by the living wage ordinance. The impact of that would be that for general assistance and PAYS recipients who are participating in the workfare program, again, sweeping the streets of San Francisco, cleaning the buses, doing laundry at San Francisco General Hospital, all of those workers would be compensated. The number of hours that would be required to do the work would be based on the living wage as opposed to the minimum wage. So it would reduce the number of hours that people are engaged in that program, in the workfare program, make it more possible for them to ultimately move over into the Community Jobs Initiative program and create more time in people's lives to be able to look for jobs in the private sector.
What would the cost to the city be?
The cost would be zero. The cost would be $0 to the city to include general assistance and PAYS recipients in the living wage ordinance.
And how many people would be involved?
Currently, there are anywhere from between 250 to 750 people who are participating in the workfare program. All of those people would be directly impacted by that one policy decision.
That's great. So can you think of anything else that we need to cover, or anything to leave out?
So, no, I don't understand how that wouldn't cost the city anything, because how is that the difference between what they're currently being paid? And I'm just,
No, it's a good question.
if you explain that.
Including general assistance and PAYS recipients in the living wage ordinance would cost nothing, because the grant level to general assistance and PAYS recipients wouldn't change. People would continue to receive a whopping $375 a month to pay for their rent, their transportation, their clothing, their over-the-counter medication. They would continue to receive just $375, but instead of having to work for minimum wage, doing all of the public sector work that those workfare workers do, instead they would continue to receive $375, but now work in exchange for an $8, the living wage. They would receive $9 to $10 an hour in exchange for that work that they're doing.
That clarify it.
So the number of hours goes down, but the wage level stays the same.
Did you have a piece of plastic or something? I heard some crackling sound.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have been picked up on the tape?
Should be a lot of noise. There's a lot of ambient noise.
Yeah. Last time, was it Larry or Emma? I never noticed it, but when you hear the tape, it just this
Pigeon?
constant cooing sound.
Yeah, there's
The pigeon was right
on the ledge.
Right, yeah. That's the little public health danger we have lurking.
Well, this went real smooth. I think we got it.
If you press it, it'll start.
Now I see record. So now it's actually recording.
It appears that both of those are operating normally, so